All right then, I'm off.
Despite claiming that his company was swamped, Mike cheerfully mentioned a staff retreat and left in high spirits. While I felt something was off about Mike's behavior, I waved him off. Around noon, after he had left, his work smartphone, which he had forgotten, kept ringing incessantly. Thinking it was something urgent, I answered the call. That call confirmed my suspicion of Mike's lie and led me to concoct a plan for retribution. My name is Nancy. I'm a 30-year-old housewife who specializes in taking care of the home. My husband, Mike, and I have been married for exactly 3 years this year. We met in college. Although we were in different departments and research labs, we met through the tennis club, where we hit it off and started dating. After graduation, we both found jobs at different companies, but our relationship continued, and on our 5th anniversary of dating, Mike proposed to me, and we decided to get married. At that time, I quit my job to become a full-time housewife. Our marriage might seem unremarkable at first glance, but I have one particular grievance. It's that I'm not able to spend enough quality time with my husband. He often says,
Right now, my career is crucial. It's not just the busy season, but if I can deliver results now, I might have a chance for promotion. Wouldn't that make you happy too?
To which I hesitantly reply, yes, but... Then he retorts,
Since I'm the one allowing you to be a housewife, don't be selfish over such matters.
I apologize. Okay, sorry. Over the past year, Mike has increasingly been away from home due to work, including overtime, working weekends, and business trips. If his efforts were reflected in his salary and contributed to our household, perhaps my dissatisfaction would be lessened. However, the amount of money Mike contributes to our household has remained unchanged. Since Mike manages our bank account, I'm not fully aware of the specifics, but I remember asking him around the time his overtime started increasing last year. The prices of groceries have been rising recently, and we're barely making ends meet. Could you possibly contribute a bit more to the household finances? Mike looked puzzled and responded,
That's impossible. We're barely scraping by as it is.
I murmured in surprise. Really? I thought, with all the overtime you've been doing, that we'd have some financial leeway. Mike then equivocated.
Well, socializing costs money. You wouldn't understand, being a housewife.
So, in the end, Mike didn't agree to increase our household budget. Therefore, I reluctantly decided to cover the shortfall in our grocery budget with the savings I had slowly accumulated before we were married. Then, one day, something happened. Mike came home and pulled out a travel brochure from his bag. I curiously asked, What's this brochure? Are we planning a trip? Mike answered,
Next month, there will be a training camp sponsored by the company to strengthen the team's unity. We will have 3 days off, so we appreciate your cooperation.
He began to set the stage for a story full of expectations and responsibility. Okay, but it's pretty unique, isn't it? A team-building camp? Considering you've been here for almost 8 years, this seems like a first. I responded with a mixture of curiosity and surprise, remembering how rare such events were during his long tenure. He seemed to be caught off guard by my observations, and he excitedly explained in detail.
After the leadership change last year, the new team leader is dedicated to fostering friendships between us. Do you remember that we invited to barbecue party?
Oh, yeah. Memories of last year's barbecue hosted by her husband's new team leader flashed back in my mind. It was the perfect blend of professionalism and personal warmth, demonstrating the friendliness and competent personality of the leader and the engaging presence of his wife. This memory also reminded me of other team members. They all exuded genuine kindness and friendship. It's been a while since I've gotten together like this with everyone from the company.
It's true that work has been tough lately.
He admitted, alluding to the relentless pace of their professional lives. Still, do you manage to make plans for training camp despite your busy schedule? I couldn't help but express my bewilderment and wondered whether such an effort was even possible given the circumstances.
Well, that's another matter.
He was quick to retort, drawing a line between work pressure and the importance of maintaining team spirit. Okay. I sensed an undercurrent of stress in his reaction and wondered about the timing of this withdrawal. I didn't know the details of her husband's work environment, but I knew that her husband's team leader had a good reputation. It seemed like it would give her husband and his colleagues a much-needed break, considering the training camp was his initiative. I decided not to think about this issue any further and let go of my concerns. However, as time will tell, the accuracy of female intuition should never be underestimated. This realization occurred to me in due course, a month later, after the course of events, when her husband packed his bags and left for a retreat. "Don't forget your souvenirs." When I playfully reminded him, he said,
Of course, you can choose what you like.
I said, "Goodbye," and watched him leave, not knowing what surprises awaited me. Around noon that day, I immersed myself in the world of television while savoring sweets and thoroughly enjoyed my precious time. At that moment, the unique ringtone of a smartphone broke the silence and signaled the beginning of an unexpected situation. Is that a phone call? Maybe it's from Mike? I mused, checking my own phone. However, its screen remained dark, engulfed in silence. The origin of the sound wasn't from here but instead came from Mike's room. I moved towards it quietly, my ears honed in on the direction of the sound, drawn as though by some magnetic force. There, at Mike's bedside, I found his work smartphone. Oh, this is Mike's business phone. Did he leave it behind? I wondered. Picking up the smartphone, I switched it to silent mode before returning to the living room. Soon after, the TV show I had been watching ended, and I turned off the TV. At that moment, I noticed something. Mike's phone, which I had set to silent, was gently vibrating. Another call again. I noted, though I didn't give it much attention and began to iron. Several minutes later, the vibration echoed again from Mike's bedroom. This occurrence repeated a few times, leading a thought to cross my mind. Could something have happened to Mike on his business trip? Maybe his colleagues are trying to get in touch with me. Even if it's not the worst-case scenario, such repeated calls must signify something important. Considering this, I resolved to answer the next call. After retrieving the smartphone from Mike's bedroom and placing it in the living room, it vibrated again within minutes. Hello? I answered apprehensively. The voice on the line was familiar.
You finally picked up. Sorry to disturb you on your day off, but there's an emergency regarding your coworker, whom you're overseeing.
The caller started off in a rush, but I quickly interjected. Actually, I'm Mike's wife.
Oh, my apologies.
He responded. Indeed, it was Richard, Mike's supervisor, whom I had once met at a barbecue. It's been a while. Sorry, but it seems my husband forgot his phone here. Then, Richard mentioned something completely unexpected.
Are you feeling okay these days?
This question caught me completely off guard. I had no idea what he was saying and was speechless for a while. Then Richard continued on the other end of the phone.
I heard from him that your feeling got worse.
My confusion only deepened. What? What is all about my health? I asked. Richard looked a little surprised and replied.
I thought you were hospitalized because you weren't feeling well.
I was surprised. Am I sick? No, I'm totally fine. After a short silence, Richard broke his silence.
Wait a minute. Mike is going to take 3 days off today to take care of you.
I thought it was a company trip. I retorted. Richard explained out loud.
Company trip? Nothing like that. I'm busy with work right now, so I don't have time for that.
Our conversation didn't mesh at all. But there was no doubt that her husband was hiding something. It seems my husband is up to no good. I couldn't help but blurt it out. Richard agreed.
It seems so. By the way, Mike is planning to return from this company trip in 3 days, right?
Yes, that's true, but... I answered hesitantly.
So where exactly is he going?
Richard continued his investigation. Although I was confused, I answered. I haven't heard the details, but I think it's probably close. I'll check. Then I took the laptop out of my husband's room, turned it on, and started carefully looking through my internet search history. Oh, this is it. I found the reservation history for a particular hotel. When I told Richard where the hotel was, he groaned as if he was thinking of something.
I have something I would like to ask you.
I gasped at the unexpected words of her husband's boss. 3 days later, her husband came home in a good mood, without knowing anything. He presented me with a souvenir that I believe he had bought locally and began to tell me about his excitement.
Sorry for being away for 3 days, but I got to know her better during this time.
I couldn't help but smile sarcastically and refuse to accept the souvenir he offered me. Oh, really? This is the first time I've heard that your boss is a woman.
Ha! What are you saying all of a sudden?
He answered confused. When I quietly handed over the photo. You've been spending the past 3 days with this woman, haven't you? He seemed upset for a moment, but quickly tried to calm himself down.
Yes, of course she is my boss.
Are you still making such nervous excuses? Have you forgotten that I know both your real boss and that woman? We once had a barbecue together, remember? When my husband heard this, his eyes widened in surprise, and he began to sweat profusely. Also, you just said you were on good terms with your boss, but your real boss said he was going to fire you.
Ha! What are you talking about? I don't understand at all.
He shouted at the top of his voice. Then an even louder scream echoed throughout the room.
You're the one who's weird.
Why is Richard here?
My husband gasped in surprise. Indeed, it was the man Richard, the husband's real boss.
When did my wife become your boss?
He asked. The woman in the photo I put on the table earlier was indeed Richard's wife.
That is...
Do you know what you did? You betrayed your wife to such an extent that you even told her she was sick. Do you know how she felt when she saw this photo?
Richard spoke, trying to impart his wisdom. As she continued, her husband hung his head in silence.
My wife said that she was also going on a 3-day trip with her friends, but when I called to Nancy, she noticed something strange. She asked them to look into it, and through a friend of hers, detectives contacted her. I hired someone to take the photo.
Richard explained while waving the photographic evidence he grabbed from the table. In fact, the very existence of these photographs, including Richard's presence here, was orchestrated by him that day. On that fateful day, the decisive phone call sealed our resolve to confront my husband's misdeeds together.
What's this about the phone call?
He inquired, a tremble in his voice, hinting at his deep-seated anxieties. I took it upon myself to elucidate, adopting a tone that was both gentle and imbued with an unwavering certainty. Indeed, you forgot your work phone at home, didn't you? His reaction was electric, akin to a man jolted by an unexpected shock.
You invaded my privacy by checking my phone?
Yes, precisely. It kept ringing off the hook, and I figured it must be something of utmost importance. I retorted, asserting the justification for my actions.
This is unbelievable. And you went as far as to track my movements?
He balked, disbelief coloring his tone. Exactly this way. I confirmed, presenting the incontrovertible evidence laid bare on his computer screen. His outcry was immediate.
This is a blatant violation of my privacy.
However, I stood my ground, fueled by righteous indignation. To have such intrusion forced upon me, you think I would stand for it? I countered, my anger palpable. The air thickened with tension as I declared. We are heading towards a divorce. His response was feeble, a mere whisper in the storm.
No, I don't want a divorce. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive?
His plea was desperate, yet notably devoid of any genuine contrition. The decision lies with me. Regrettably, your actions have rendered forgiveness impossible. I stated, my voice steady and resolute. At this juncture, Richard chimed in with a grave addition.
It's not merely about the divorce. You're also being terminated from your position.
Why?
The question emerged from him, laden with tears, a testament to his dawning realization of the gravity of his situation. Richard's reply was unyielding.
Is there truly a need for further explanation? reflect upon your actions.
With those parting words, Richard made his exit, leaving a silence in his wake. Compelled by a newfound resolve, I gathered my belongings and stepped out of the house, leaving behind a life once shared. His cries of despair and belated apologies reached my ears, but they fell on deaf ears. My decision was irrevocable. In the days that followed, our divorce became official, a legal affirmation of the chasm that had grown between us. In a twist of fate, my ex-husband found himself ousted from his job, as Richard had forewarned, a consequence not solely dictated by personal vendettas, but by the undeniable truth of his actions. From what Richard told me, it turns out Mike had been playing hooky under the guise of taking care of me when I was supposedly sick. This meant that during the busiest times at work, he'd push all his crucial tasks onto his coworkers, causing quite a bit of resentment across the team. It looks like all those hours he freed up with his excuses were spent with Richard's wife, leading to their eventual divorces. Now, both Mike and Richard's ex-wife are facing demands for compensation from us, leaving them at their wits' end. After running through his savings, Mike sought help from his parents. However, once they learned the full story, they outright refused to lend any support, essentially cutting him off. In a surprising turn, Mike's parents came over to my family's home to apologize, firmly stating they wouldn't forgive their son either. On my end, I told my parents I needed a break and wished to stay with them for a while. They opened their arms wide, offering me a place of solace.
Nancy, there's no rush.
They said.
Let us know if there's anything we can do to help.
With their words, I found a temporary home with them until I could get back on my feet. Recently, I wrapped up my final job interview and managed to land a new job. It's time for a fresh start, and I'm ready to throw myself into my work with renewed vigor. Clad in my new suit, I gazed up at the bright blue sky, feeling determined and hopeful for what lies ahead.